I have had the privilege of being in education a little bit over 18 years, and I've taught at pretty much every grade level, from kindergarten to 12th grade and into higher education in the area of mathematics. And I have found that consistently amongst all grade levels in K 12 education, as well as in higher education, students struggle with the concept of operations of fractions. So this has become a concern that I wanted to address as an instructor in the middle school level, the high school level, as well as the elementary school level. But I also wanted to address this at the college level because I found that working with remedial courses and developmental courses for students as well, they struggle with the concept of operations of fractions as well. So I developed three strategies that I think are very key and vital to allowing students to have success when operating fractions using multiplication, division, subtraction, and addition. So I want to share each of these four methods with you as part of my teaching presentation. I call this method the smiley face method. And we're going to start with some addition using the smiley face method. So I want to first begin by taking some time to just create a simple fraction to show you how the process works. And the idea is that this process works with any fraction that you're given. So it's a very simple process, very easy to understand, and students enjoy it, and it also allows them to have fun as they're learning, especially at the middle school and elementary school level, and then they're able to develop the process throughout high school as well as through college level learning in mathematics. So I want to start with a simple fraction of, let's say I have 1/2 plus 1/3. Traditionally, you would go through the process of identifying the common denominator and so forth and change the numerators. And the students just struggle with that. They struggle with that concept and they don't understand how to do that and they just get lost. And then they disengage with the whole concept of fractions. But I'm going to show you a simple way to support students in learning how to do this. I'm going to rewrite each fraction using the smiley face method and solve. The first thing I want to do is build my common denominator. To do that, I can start by creating a mouth, which is going to represent the mouth in the smiley face method. Put an X there for the tongue, which means you're going to multiply. And so your common denominator is going to be 2 times 3, which is 6. So now you have your common denominator for both of your new fractions. And now, of course, we have a mouth and we have a nose, but now we need some eyes. So now we're going to create the eyes using our smiley face method as well. 2 times 1, which is 2, and 3 times 1, which is 3. And when you add those together, now you found your common denominator and you've also found your new numerator. So now you're able to simply add 3 plus 2, which is 5. That marker's not working. Let's get another one. 5 sixes. Remember, you do not add your denominator. You keep your denominator the same, but you add your numerator. And that's a very simple way to teach students how to add using the smiley face method with any fraction. And again, this works for any fraction that the student is working with. let's take some time to work on a simple subtraction with the smiley face method. So I'm going to put subtraction here because we're going to subtract. And let's say we keep those same numbers just for consistency. We have 1/2 minus 1/3. And nothing changes when you're doing subtraction with the smiley face method. Everything stays the same. You're going to start with your mouth and your tongue by multiplying. This allows you to create your new fraction. And we know that 2 times 3 is 6. And that repeats for both fractions. And now that we have our mouth and we have our nose, we have to create our eyes. So let's take the time to do that. Two times 1 is 2. And see, this should be a subtraction. Let me correct that. And 3 times 1 is 3. So now we're going to subtract 3 minus 2 is 1. And of course, we keep our denominator the same. So we have 1/2 minus 1/3 is equal to 1/6. And again, students are able to pick up on this process and they're able to understand what we're doing. We're finding the common denominator and we're changing the numerator without going through the entire concept of finding the common denominator and the LCM and etc. And this allows students to better understand the concept, and then once they develop this method, you're able to go into more detail on how to reduce and etc. to work for students. But this is a good way to build a foundation of helping to alleviate the stress that students feel when they're working with operations of fractions. And this is the smiley face method for subtraction. The next method I want to teach is called the B method. This method can be used for division of fractions. The smiley face method only works with addition and subtraction. But the B method works with when you're focusing on the importance of dividing, you want to use what I call the B method. So let's say we have 3/4 divided by 1/2. So we have 3/4 divided by 1/2. Traditionally, you would focus on find the reciprocal of the second and then multiplying. But again, students get lost with that concept. So I just wanted to help them out to have success by using the B method. And the B method just involves creating 2 B's along your fraction. And these B's will help you to find your correct answer. The first B is 3 times 2. Bring it back up. 3 times 2 is 6. That's your first V. And now for the second V, you want to make an upside down V. And it's going to be 4 times 1. And it goes here, 4. And so you have 6/4. And you know, at this point, this is an opportunity for you to teach your students to use reducing and know how to reduce the fraction down to its lowest terms. and etc. So that's another learning opportunity for students. But I don't focus on that as I work on these methods. I focus on that afterwards because I want them to get familiar with the process, and then I teach reducing as a separate lesson for students to show that it's equivalent, to show that the equivalent fractions will be the same whether they're reduced or not. We do focus on reducing, but for this particular lesson, I focus on teaching them the practice and the concept to ensure that they're able to repeat the processes and procedures consistently throughout the lessons. And of course, this was for division, but now let's look at the last one, of course, which is going to be our multiplication. And for multiplying, this is the one the students rarely get easily, and it's just, I call it just straight across the essays, just straight across because you're just going to multiply and straight across to get your answers for your fraction. So let's begin with that. Let's say I have 1/3 times 3/4. And again, I call this a straight across because for this lesson, you just simply go straight across to solve your fraction. 3 times 1, 3 times 4. So your answer is 3/12. And so again, you have 3/12 as your answer. And again, this is another opportunity to focus on that reducing concept. But again, I would advise instructors not to focus on the reducing first because you don't want to overwhelm the students when you know you're dealing with a concept that they struggle with. So for me, this has been the foundation. Teaching my students how to use the smiley face method, the V method, as well as the straight across method. And as I reflect on this, the important thing for me was finding a way to better support students. And I focused on this at the elementary school level. And then when I began to teach at middle school, I found the students still struggle with the same concept. And even in high school, they struggled. And even in my current role as a dean of education in mathematics, students struggle with fractions and they just tend not to do them, or they rely on a calculator, which is not always efficient and effective and not always available to students. So I found that teaching these 3 methods at any level of education will allow students to have success. I really enjoy this. This is something I really practice on, and it involves developing those fixed mindsets of students, breaking down those mathematical mindsets. The students think they can't do something because it's difficult for them. So I want to find ways to support them in achieving their goals and accomplishments in the area of mathematics. So I have several strategies and tools that I've developed over the years in the area of mathematics, but this is one of the lessons that I want to share with you all today as my teaching demonstration, because I think that it's very vital and important for students to be able to operate using fractions with consistency and effectiveness within their own practices. And this is my approach, and it's been very beneficial for me. And I saw many students who had success using this practice. So it's something that I am very passionate about. And I've even had teachers, administrators, and superintendents tell me that I should patent this practice and present it and have it patented, say it's my method. But I don't want to do that. My goal is to take everything that I know and share with other individuals, and that's why I chose to share with you today. I want to thank you for taking the time to listen to me and go over this short presentation with me, and I hope to hear back from you within the near future. Thank you very much for your time.